Amanda Nunes becomes champ yet again, reclaiming her title in what can only be described as an utterly dominant performance. Although she was pretty marked up by the end of the 5-round fight, winning on scores of 50-45, 50-44, and then 50-43. It was a thrashing for the most part. Now, Rashad, I want to talk about how impressive it is in just a second. But first, we got a fighter on, and this is my favorite thing to do, is to pick the brains of fighters. Looked to me like there's two big things that she won that fight in terms of reasons. The southpaw switch, and then she went to the takedowns later. But you tell me from your perspective, how did Amanda Nunes win this fight? What were the keys for her?
Well, I mean, the X's and O's aside for right now, but I would just say mentally speaking, I feel like she's done the mental work, the mental preparation. When I lost to Machida, the hardest fight for me was the next fight against Thiago Silva. I had a mental coach with me, working with me all throughout camp and bringing me along, even on fight day, just making sure I was mentally locked in, because it's scary when you got to go back out there and compete in the same arena that you got knocked out in a fight before or just had a bad performance in. So, I mean, that's what she had to overcome, mentally speaking. So I gave her a heads up for that, because Julianna Pena was not going.
Let me follow up on that. When you say you had a mental coach, like, what were you dealing with? Anxiety? Like fear? What were the things that you were worried about that the coach was trying to get you to get over?
It was anxiety. It was definitely fear. You always have both of those going into the fight, but when you have a bad experience from the last fight, it kind of gets amplified even more, and then you start feeling yourself going down those holes where you're just like, oh my gosh, is this happening again? I felt like this last time. And then you start working yourself into a panic, and being able to go with somebody who's going to be able to mentally get you through it, like a performance coach. They teach you to kind of work past those cues, those red lights as they call, and just kind of starting to rewrite those in your mind and starting to really kind of change the association that you had with it. So like when I started to feel nervous, my coach was telling me, nah, that's not you feeling nervous. That's you feeling ready. So I would just kind of change what it was in my mind that I was feeling, instead of me feeling like I'm not ready because I'm nervous. He started telling me to feel like I was ready for nervous. So it was those kind of cues, along with just the visualization, that helped out a lot, get me right for that fight.
All right. Fair enough. And to that point, like actually we can talk about that. I didn't detect even the slightest degree. Well, she definitely was avoiding a lot of the stuff that got her into trouble in the first fight. I will say that. I thought she did get away from some of those things. But in general, she looked fresh. She looked like she was in good shape, right? She looked like she was mentally all there. Do you share that assessment?
Yeah, she was all there. She was tracking, and she didn't lose focus at any point in the fight. Even when those times where Pena did have one good punch where it seemed like Nunes would start getting in the exchange and trying to shoot the 50-50, meaning they both can hit each other. She didn't do that. She kind of pulled away and got a little bit of distance. And even there was times where it looked like she was getting hit with a shot, and then she'll change the conversation of the fight. Instead of striking, then she'll go with some grappling technique. What was good, because before last time, she got caught with a shot with Pena, and her ego wouldn't let her to do anything else but exchange back. And what I noticed in that fight, Pena has some power. So that's what got her in trouble last time, not being able to adjust that ego. But I mean, Amanda Nunes, for me, when she was able to come out there and start executing with that lead hook, and I think that was the main reason why she switched to that southpaw stance to capitalize on that right hook, I think it was just, a foregone conclusion, because Pena had nothing at that point.
So help us understand, why did that lead hook work? Now she was switching stances, so that's actually her normal power hand, and she was catching Pena. I mean, Pena was coming in pretty straight, but from your vantage point, tell me why that hook was so devastating.
Well, because the way Pena comes in, when she comes in, she almost reaches first, and she doesn't really keep her hand up. She doesn't throw too much traffic by way of getting Amanda Nunes to react in order to keep her hands up, so she's not going to be getting caught with a punch. So whenever Pena closed the distance, she knew that she had that hook right there. And also that hook, it allows her to get off to an angle, because if she's hooking out of the way as Pena's going straight down the trajectory to get the takedown, Pena's momentum is going to continue to take her forward, as Amanda Nunes is going to be able to go along the side of where the hook is. So it kind of served two purposes, but the power on it and the fact that Pena just wasn't able to check that right hand with her left hand. It really caused her problems. It seemed like somewhere, I think in the fourth round, Pena started having a little bit more success and landing some more punches, and that was primarily because she started reaching out. She started reaching out and grabbing that hand that Nunes was hitting her with that lead right hand, and she was able to kind of take the activity off it, but she didn't stick with that plan.
No, she certainly didn't, and obviously she got taken down there a bunch. I don't have the stats here in front of me exactly. I got to tell you, I was so impressed by this performance for the reasons you articulated. In terms of the mental approach, you know what really stuck out to me about this one? Tell me if you agree or disagree. I'm sure that you probably agree, but like expand on it if you can. It was just comprehensively good, right? It was comprehensively good from the first round. Like it seemed to me that Pena was trying to fight the last fight again, whereas Amanda was like fresh start. And with that fresh start, she had a brand new approach. She had a brand new system. She stuck to it in the way you talked about, very disciplined in that way. And just when the fight was kind of settling into this rhythm in the second and then the third round, then she switches it up, goes to the grappling. For the most part, had pretty good submission defense. A couple of those omoplatas were, they were not very close. I mean, they were threatening or in the sense that you had to react to them, but they were not close. The armbar in the fourth was close. We'll talk about that in a second. But then, dude, her ground and pound was good. Her cardio was good. For me, all the boxes that she had to check, the big ones, I'm sure there's a couple of mistakes here or there, but the big boxes, were you in shape? Were you focused? Did you have a new strategy? Did you stick to it? Did you switch things up to keep her off balance? She did all of that, right?
Yeah, no, she did it 100%. I felt also a part of it was, Pena failed to make the adjustments throughout the fight, and I feel part of it, a lot of that blame goes to the coaches, and I say that not to try to call any coaches out, but when I'm listening to the corner advice, and I know sometimes you can get so caught up with just being in the fight as a corner person, but I felt as if like Pena's corner wasn't giving her clear instructions on how to close the distance in an effective kind of way. They kept telling her close the distance. Well, she was closing the distance, but she was getting served up every single time. She was almost too aggressive closing the distance and not with a structured plan on how to close the distance. There was no, hey, we're going to lay some cover, lead jab, triple jabs in order to close that gap, in order to cross that bridge and get in a position where she can start to get Nunes against the fence and kind of work the game where she can kind of start to melt her down a little bit. And I feel like that's where she missed an opportunity in this fight, because I believe it was like in the third round, she had a little bit of success with holding Nunes against the cage and landing some pop shots. That's the kind of fight that she needed to fight from the first round on, and then allow herself to open up with the striking once she's melted down that great striking of Amanda Nunes.
Yeah, the thing is like, did Amanda Nunes show great cardio? She did. But the thing about it was, she was kind of able to structure how she used it, right? Like, she was ready. She looked like she was physically fit. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But what I am also saying is, she was working, for the most part, on her terms. She was never working on Pena's terms in that way. And so if you can work on your terms, you know this, Rashad, it's just a lot easier to know how to breathe, to be calm, to be in that space. It's just a comfort zone. She was, for the most part, in her comfort zone the whole time, whereas Pena, to your point, in between corners, they were telling her to get to the clinch, which I'm sure if she could get to the clinch more ably, it would have done her some good. But to your point, they didn't give her the instructions. And so Amanda was able to work and structure her, let's say, her gas tank and how she was going to spend that gas tank money, so to speak, in all the ways in which she wanted. She had a budget, right? She had a budget for the gas tank, and she got to stick to that budget the whole time. Yeah,
she did. And it seemed like, she was gaining confidence during the fight, because after you see the first and second round, she's smiling. And then I feel like a part of the problem was also, after the first round is over, you see Amanda Nunes high five Pena. Listen, if I'm Pena, I'm not taking that high five, because the friendlier she got with Amanda Nunes, the more comfortable Amanda Nunes got. And once Amanda Nunes got in full comfort mode, she started smiling, she started having fun. It was a wrap. If you want to beat Amanda Nunes, you got to keep her in frustration mode. You got to keep her second guessing herself. You got to keep her with her head down. You got to keep her mad. You don't be high-fiving Amanda Nunes in a fight if you're expecting to beat her.
That's a great point. I really hadn't thought of that. And it's part of the reason why she won the first one, right? Because to your point, with the ego, she was just constantly wading into these bad battles where she was getting eaten up by Pena's jab. I hadn't really thought too much about that. That's kind of interesting. That's a good insight. Well, let me ask you this: were you a touch glove? I can't remember anymore. Were you a big touch gloves guy?
No, I wasn't a touch glove. I wasn't a big touch gloves guy, and I stopped being a touch gloves guy after I fought Forrest Griffin. And he told me right on weigh-in, he said, "Hey, when we come out and we fight tomorrow, no tapping, no touching gloves." And it changed my mentality because I remember how I felt when he said that. When he said that to me, I was like, "Oh, this is serious." You know what I'm saying? It wasn't a competition anymore. It just took it another level serious, even though he probably had his reasons for doing it. But I felt a certain way about it. So after that, I'm like, if I feel that way about not touching gloves, I'm sure a lot of people feel that way about touching gloves. So I'm going to take the security away from them. We're not friends. I'm not going to let you feel comfortable. This isn't a sparring match. This isn't going to be fun.
Okay. Is it fair to say, though, that like this could be somewhat fighter or situational dependent? I mean, like, for example, there's the famous one of Pat Barry, and he always said that his idol was Crow Cop, and he was way too friendly in that fight, and I think it cost him, even though he was able to hurt Crow Cop. But I have seen guys that could high five, and then they just go right back to just, slinging the punches with abandon. Is it fair to say that some people can kind of get away with it? Maybe not in this case, certainly, but in other cases.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't think anything is 100% anyway. I think everybody's different, and what motivates them to fight is differently. So it all depends on that personality. But in my personality, I'm a friendly guy. You know what I'm saying? I'm not one of those guys who, you wouldn't see me and say, okay, he's a fighter. You know what I'm saying? So for me, in order to fight, I had to bring that extra. And part of me bringing that extra was being able to mentally lock myself in and say, this is not... I'm not this guy's friend, So I had to really be able to turn a switch and make that distinction.
All right, that fourth round armbar, that was probably the best. I really thought watching that, I was like, that was her chance. That was her chance. If she didn't get that, then it was kind of hopeless. And so it was pretty close, but to me, the issues there were like, with the armbar, she had it fully extended, but you could see Amanda rotating her wrist so that the thumb was never in like this compromised position, although by itself, it doesn't need to point to the sky, but you could see her playing with the wrist articulation so that it never really got fully locked out. And then the other part was she just didn't quite have the squeeze on it, Amanda Nunes, in terms of, Pena, in terms of heels to rear end and her knees pinched. It was a little bit too extended, and so Nunes was able to cut the corner and come around. How close did you think it was watching it in real time?
I thought it was a lot closer, more like on a forearm pressure, like a little Tim Sylvia type action.
Frank Mir.
Yeah, yep. Frank Mir. I felt like that was a little bit tighter there, and that can be a little bit uncomfortable and make you make a bad decision, feeling like it's interlocked, and then you make a bad move. But I felt like Nunes covered it pretty well. But I feel like also, maybe that was good that happened to Pena. Know that she can get a submission off her back, but sometimes having a little bit of success in an area kind of hurts you for the rest of the fight. And I say that because after that, she wanted to keep going for the same submission over and over again, and she got kind of tunnel vision and not really starting to progress to the next progressive move that will work and be able to get her a real chance of finishing the fight. She did mount some attacks from the arm bar to the triangle transition, but I needed to see more as far as, what about a knee bar? What about some other kind of challenges that's going to be able to kind of shake things up a little bit and get Amanda Nunes a little bit more uncomfortable and less likely to be comfortable just laying on top,
Fair enough. It's kind of funny. I had people being like, oh, why did she go for the takedown, Amanda Nunes? And she did two of them. She had two judo trips. I think she went for the same one, but one ended up being a back trip like an Osoto Gara. The other one ended up being like a Harai Gochi from the front. But I think it was only because Pena was kind of twisting in the wind the whole time, so it was just a question of like where she was when she ultimately got tossed. But the thing was for me, I almost called you BC. The thing for me, Rashad, sorry about that. The thing for me was, if you look at the historical takedown defensive rate of Pena, before the fight it was 25%. Like her takedown accuracy was 25%. Now it's 23%. And we don't want to get too wrapped up in the stats because a guy like Khabib was floating around like 48% or so. But I will say, if you see a fighter like on a main card, especially in a title fight, and they have a sub 30%, a takedown accuracy rate, that's low. That is low. That's not that great. Or excuse me, what am I saying? Takedown defense. Excuse me. Takedown defense. Her takedown defense was 23%. That's low. That means like 3 of every 4 attempts that you try to stuff don't work.
Don't work, yeah.
Right? And so Amanda Nunes was able to get there, get on top. And that's the thing. It's like, does Pena have a good guard? Yes, she does. She has a good guard. But getting the, you know this, submitting a black belt from your back with your guard, that doesn't happen against black belts all that often unless you hurt them. Like Anthony Pettis drilling that body kick to Benson Henderson and then getting the armbar after it, right? So hunting off your back, it's just a low percentage way to do it unless you can really put some steam on them first with some strikes.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's kind of, like it's kind of a default position once you can't really keep the fight where you want to keep it. And, I feel as also that was part of Nunes' game. Like once she was able to get Pena down consistently, that was part of her winning the fight because one thing in the fight is it's all about morally just kind of taking it away from your partner, from your opponent, just destroying them in every single facet and being able to dominate in the grappling was, I bet, one of Pena's, what she thought she'd be able to do. But when you go in there and you just defang the snake and you beat them right where they think they're going to beat you, it's another ego deflator, and it just helps the process of just beating your opponent because you're beating them every single place and there's really no place for them to go. And then you start to see the look in their eyes and you start to feel that sigh come out and you just almost feel as if like they're going to just cruise to the defeat. But even though Pena did not cruise to defeat, she was definitely beaten though.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, this is an interesting one, Rashad, because 34 years of age, she didn't like... People talk about changing gyms. It wasn't like she went from ATT to like AKA in that sense. She kind of put everything around herself. And I'm going to guess, I don't know this for a fact, I'm going to guess even at ATT, she kind of had her own little system within the system, given who she was and given her tenure there, although she had previously started with MMA Masters before that. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, she did have let's say, a change in the gym situation or whatever you want to call that, and that loss and everything else. Just walk me through this. Not only just did she turn in an incredible performance, but the age and then all the changes she had to experience. How incredible is this feat? How hard was it to do what she was able to accomplish on Saturday night?
It was extremely difficult. And listen, because of all the things that you mentioned, I didn't think she was going to win the fight. I mean, because I know what it means to be able to make those big changes, and the fact that, she had her wife in training camp and then her wife didn't fight a couple weeks ago for whatever reason. So you just never know how all those things are playing into this, into the puzzle. And, being in a situation where now you go from being in a gym setting where the machine is running and operating and you don't got to do anything but show up, but then now be the orchestrator in your own gym and really have to worry about everything on the outside. That's another distraction that comes along with it, and it can definitely distract you and pull you in a way and pull energy out of the way that doesn't help on fight day. So the fact that she was able to get it all together, but more importantly look better than she's looked in her 2 or 3 previous fights before that, it really showed that this move was the best move for her, and that's what I seen on Saturday. I seen that she made a move that was the best move for her, and it may be something that she was probably thinking about a few fights prior, because she competed with just a sense of just freeness that I haven't seen, and it was just the expressions in her face at times, and when she was smiling when she's fighting. I haven't seen that in her in so long, and to see that come out on Saturday really shows that she put together a camp that made her feel good from a soul point of view.